On Wednesday, March 30th, D.C. police discovered 5 fetuses at the home of a prominent anti-abortion activist. Lauren Handy is the Director of Activism for Progressive Anti Abortion Uprising, a group that says they oppose abortion on leftist grounds. Over the past few months, PAAU, as it's called, has participated in several demonstrations, often with Lauren Handy's participation. In November, Handy protested outside a Planned Parenthood before participating with a demonstration outside the Democratic Party headquarters that same day.
Equality, nonviolence, and non-discrimination!
In January, Handy was arrested by Capitol Police in a civil disobedience demonstration against the death penalty.
Abolition now! Abolition now! Abolition now!
Most recently in March, Handy was on the front lines of a counterprotest against a rally supporting Ketanji Jackson Brown for the Supreme Court.
Abortion hurts women! Women deserve better! Women deserve better!
When Handy was arrested last Wednesday, though, along with 8 of her comrades, it was not for her recent activism, nor was it technically related to the fetuses in her home. The 9 defendants were charged with conspiracy against rights and clinic access obstruction for allegedly taking over the Washington Surgery Clinic and preventing women from entering on October 22, 2020. When police searched her home, they discovered the fetuses. On Tuesday, April 5th, PAAU held a press conference to tell their side of the story. PAAU founder Teresa Bakovenich, who identifies as an atheist leftist, says she and Handy received a box from a medical waste management services driver, which they later opened.
On Friday, March 25th, the day of the unborn child, Lauren Handy and I went to Washington Surgery Center to engage in anti-abortion advocacy. Upon arrival, we saw a truck labeled Curtis Bay Medical Waste Services parked outside. We approached the driver, who was about to load 2 large boxes with biohazard symbols onto his truck. We asked him if he knew what was in the boxes, and after he said no, we told him, dead babies. The driver was visibly shaken. After he confirmed the boxes were from Washington Surgery, I asked him, would you get in trouble if we took one of these boxes? And he asked, what would you do with them if you took one? Lauren said, we will give them a proper burial and a funeral. The driver thought for a second and said, okay, and gestured towards the box. Lauren immediately grabbed the box off of the dolly, and we brought it back to her apartment.
The group claims that there were the remains of 115 aborted fetuses, but they believed 5 appeared to have been aborted too late, in violation of federal law. This, they say, prompted them to call authorities before 9 of the activists were arrested.
Hello, my name is Lauren Handy. I'm a devout Catholic who supports economic left policies and creating a culture of life. I'm also the Director of Activism for the Progressive Anti Abortion Uprising and one of the 9 defendants indicted by the FBI on FACE charges. I made a promise, a funeral and a burial. It has been my desire since the beginning, since March 25th, and through the whole process to ensure these children's dignity were uplifted and respected. During the 5 days they were under my stewardship, the 115 victims of abortion violence were given a funeral mass for unbaptized children, and the 110 have been given a proper burial in a private cemetery by a priest. But what about the 5? Phoenix, Harriet, Christopher X, Angel, and Holly, the children who have been featured in the news so far, were so advanced in their gestational age, and the patterns of their wounds suggest violent federal crimes. We arranged for the medical examiner to pick up the children.
The group proceeded to show extremely graphic video showcasing their alleged discovery at the press conference.
Uplifting and showing the 5 children does not pit us against their parents. I am deeply heartbroken for these families. Their exploitation from Washington Surgery and then their children being used for profit by Curtis Bay shows how deeply flawed our communities are structured.
Warning, this footage is disturbing and will be shown uncensored for the purposes of this video. The Washington Medical Examiner has already announced that the city has no intentions of autopsying the fetuses because even an elective late-term abortion doesn't violate District of Columbia law.
We are demanding that the DC police conduct a full investigation into the deaths of these babies, including thorough autopsies. We demand that the U.S. Department of Justice prosecute Santangelo for violations of the Born Alive Infant Protection Act and the Partial Birth Abortion Act. And we're demanding it now.
The activists hope that the federal government will charge Dr. Cesare Santangelo, the sole abortion doctor at the Washington Surgery Clinic, under the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act. Both his clinic and he personally have repeatedly been targeted by activists over the past several years. Given these new accusations, I asked whether the group could unequivocally forbid vigilante violence. Are you at all concerned about the possibility of vigilantism towards Santangelo following this presser? And can you state sort of unequivocally that you only want this dealt with through lawful means?
I am strategically, politically, and religiously against all forms of aggressive violence. I have always been strategically, politically, and religiously against all forms of aggressive violence.
About 2 minutes after that answer, Lauren returned to the question of violence.
How much more of a glaring testimony do you want?
I would also like to make a further comment on people who use violence to create social change. We cannot mirror the injustice. We must break that cycle of violence. We must act non-violently. We cannot mirror the injustice. We want to build a culture where instead of hurt people, but healed people, heal people. We must promote justice, peace, beauty, and truth. And I am against all forms of aggressive violence. And going forward, we all must, for these five, we must act in nonviolence.
Following the presser, I asked Lauren Handy about her orientation as a self-identified pro-life leftist.
I believe this is an amoral government. As a Catholic anarchist, and we have an amoral government, and the tides sway each and every way. But one thing that we can count on is community and connection and people power, and I have more faith in that than the courts.
What do you think of people casting you as being on the right, in spite of identifying as an anarchist and wearing a shirt that says progressive?
People's confirmation bias, we're bucking up against confirmation bias and, once again, speculation and everything of that nature. But, I'm far left, and I believe that our liberation must include both born and unborn, and to create these safe and sustainable communities that we see in a reproductive justice framework. I don't believe we should exclude the unborn. I believe abortion is a violent band-aid, and that access to clean water, affordable and safe housing, universal income, workers' rights, these are all ways we can create safe and sustainable communities where we don't have to pick and choose which of our children live or die.
PAAU founder Teresa Bukovinich also shared her thoughts on that, even citing Karl Marx.
This isn't about right or left. Even Marxist teaching says to each according to their need, from each according to their ability. We see that fitting right into the pro-life message and applying to the unborn. So it is a tactic by the abortion industrial complex that they are utilizing with their massive amounts of influence in the media, in the Democratic Party, to continue to stigmatize any life-affirming efforts, any pro-life efforts, any anti-abortion efforts, labeling it as right-wing so that they can continue to hold power with that relationship.
While the DC Medical Examiner has indicated they will not pursue any criminal charges over the activists' allegations of illegally late-term abortions, the DOJ has not yet commented. At the same time, the activists themselves, who reportedly found themselves in possession of as many as 115 fetuses, have also not yet been charged over the incident. Who, if anyone, is charged remains to be seen. Do you believe that you have any hope of the Biden DOJ actually prosecuting Santangelo?
I believe in people power. I believe in people power, and I believe in the hope that justice will prevail.
And to that same end, are you concerned at all that they are going to charge you in relation to this action?
I mean, it's a possibility. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're not afraid.
Every action has consequences, and we weighed our actions, and we know that we have to accept those consequences as well. And I believe those consequences are worth it in the pursuit of justice for these 5, in the pursuit of justice for people who were exploited by the abortion industry.
Ford Fisher, News to Share, with additional footage by TJ Jones for Activism Uncensored, a collaboration with TK News.